everyone? We are. This is the Unrestricted podcast, hosted by Rotor Riot, and I'm joined today with Chad Kapper. And if you didn't see him vlogging every single week, you surely think he's a male model, Drew Camden.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Mr. MattyStuntz.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you, Matty.
This is a monumental day. We finally got it all together. The stars aligned. And
we've had how many practice runs?
I think we've had like at least 3 practice sessions that I know of.
Yeah. So this better be a banging podcast. So why are we starting a podcast, Matty?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a couple of reasons why I wanted to do one. Now, the first reason was I would have these conversations with Chase Ashton, and I just realized that the stuff we were talking about I thought was pretty interesting. So, like, maybe I'd like to share it, my opinions and my views of the hobby with everyone else. So I was thinking, I should either start vlogging or start doing something like podcasts. And then probably like 2-3 months ago, I asked people, what would you like to see, a vlog or a podcast? And then I can keep my like editing footage separate and just have the podcast as my vlog or just like connection with the community. So I don't know. I wasn't in the right headspace still, and then you guys came to Canada, and then I realized that there was a lot of other shit going on within the community, and I kind of wanted to just have a place to I don't know how.
You were on this hiatus for a while, and I think you're coming back into the scene. And part of that was when we came and visited you, we started talking about all this stuff going on. And what was funny to me is you were just like, wait, what are you talking about? I was so jealous.
That's right.
I was like, oh, you're just so disconnected from all the bullshit. It's awesome.
Yes. But at the same time, I'm disconnected. But at the same time, I want to see everyone get along, and I want to see people that, especially new people that come into the hobby. I want them to know that there's more. It's almost like stock manipulation, where there's a couple of really well-known people, and it's great because they get their content out there and they have good views, but it might not be, they might not be showing the whole picture. And I think that I've always kind of been the black sheep in the industry in regards to my flying style, the way that I set up my rigs, the way that I view a flying spot. So yeah, I think that mixed in with Drew, and at the same time, Chad Kapper, I think it's going to be a good place for people to come and just experience something new.
Well, I think I was jazzed right away when you brought it up. You said, hey, I've been thinking about doing a podcast, and I was like, anything I can do to help. And so I love it. I think it's kind of interesting how we ended up settling on the 3 of us for this, but what I was looking for out of it was just some straight talk, to be able to talk about things very, what I want to say, as objectively as possible, but very directly. I didn't want it. I told you guys I didn't want it to just be a session where we, gripe about stuff and people, but to hopefully address topics in a very intellectual way and, explore what's going on in the community and give people some other perspectives.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what I really liked about when we hung out last time in Canada is that we all had some great conversations, and very rarely did the 3 of us, when we were talking, actually agree on everything. But I think we were able to see each other's perspectives, so I really liked that dynamic. So for me, I already have this like vlog that I post all the time, but it's very me-centric. I mean, that's kind of the just the nature of a vlog, right? So doing something like this where it's forced discussion between varying perspectives, I think can bring out some interesting things and some creative challenges that I can't necessarily get through my main outlet. So super excited to be kicking this up.
And I had some strong beliefs, even like remember when we were into Dutch, the breakfast house, and we were chatting about vlogging versus just putting out a regular edit, I was really for putting out just a regular edit, and I didn't really see the value in vlogging. And after the conversation, even you swayed me. It was like, okay, yeah, I didn't really see it from that perspective, and maybe it's not that bad. So
and I would love to make that a topic for a future episode.
It will be.
Different mediums of expression in this industry, specifically like vlogging, which was the big hype, and then we had like the cinematic hype. So I think we should definitely get into that on a future episode. And to all of our viewers, please let us know what you would like to see, if that sounds interesting, and anything else you'd like to see us dig into.
I thought Matty's best vlog was on your camera.
Hey guys, MattyStuntz, go flying.
When I stole the camera for like 5 minutes.
That's the best video of the year.
Yeah, you can find that on my channel. That's youtube.com/ledribfpv.
Did you post that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't watch your channel, Drew.
Ouch.
Sorry, I honestly, and I'll dig into this a little bit more, but I don't watch anyone's flying. It's not because I'm a dick or anything like that, but I kind of like to disconnect. And if I see a bunch of other people doing something, I might throw it in. I just like to not look at what everyone else is doing, so I can just come up with my own stuff, right? But you do make good content. I mean, I watched the one where you had the beef with me, and it was a very good edit.
Yeah, I watched it because you were in it.
Very entertaining. Yeah.
So real quick, guys, let's talk about what's the content for today. What's on the lineup?
While we're starting this podcast, which we've just gotten into, as well as I think just in general the different ways that the community connects. The most popular being Facebook, the different Facebook groups, and how those are perceived, and how some are seen as. I see the word toxic thrown around a lot, and what goes into creating a place for the thousands and thousands of people to connect in a free speech open way. How do you control that, or do you not control it? What does that mean?
Wait, so are we discussing the topic, or are you summarizing?
I was
Let's start discussing it. Let's jump right into this bitch.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the Rotor Riot Facebook group. My favorite topic.
Yes.
I hate I love the group, but I hate the like amount of energy it takes sometimes.
Oh,
so
it
now,
takes. Yeah.
So now, how when I asked this question about topics on the Rotor Riot forum, one guy specifically said, "What are we doing about this forum?" And then Chad's like, "What do you mean?" And then he's like, "Well, it's like, look at it. It's just crazy, right? It's craziness." Mm-hmm. So how do you even deal with something like that? Like, do we have to put rules in place so people behave themselves?
Well, it's contrary to belief, there are rules in place, and they are enforced.
Yes.
But the sheer volume of the group, we have like a team. How many moderators? We have 6 moderators that spend a lot of time, just volunteer basis, just because they care about the community. Mm-hmm. Spend a lot of time, in there helping keeping it a productive yet fun environment. But things always are just going to slip through the cracks. So unless we either reduce volume, or it's the difference between having a focused group. So we actually recently launched a separate Facebook group called Quad Camp, and that one there's a very focused mission of that group. Maybe Chad can tell a little bit more about that, and how it contrasts between Rotor Riot, the Rotor Riot Facebook group, where that's meant to be a general discussion hub for the community, somewhat of a anything goes, let's have fun and enjoy ourselves, versus this new one that has a focus. So you tell us a bit about that, Chad.
Yeah. Okay. So the current group has almost 25,000 members, and I don't think people realize we have over 18,000 active members. I'm currently looking at the stats right now. That is a really high percentage of active members. On top of that, we have 1,700 posts a week. So divide that by 7. I can't do that kind of math, but that's a lot of posts.
So now, is that a 1,700 posts a week, not to mention every post has a comment?
Yeah, yeah. And then the popular ones can get up to 300 comments. So just 1,700 posts. Imagine on average you're probably getting about 20 comments per post. It's quite intense. And what happens is Facebook has an algorithm that will detect what you interact with, and it will feed you more of that. And here's what happens. Something gets posted, somebody gets triggered by that, and they get really angry and they have to post their hate. Now what happens is Facebook goes, wow, that person engaged on that pretty quickly. And then somebody else posts something about, hey, why do you got to be hating on this? And then that person says, because this place is toxic. And then what happens is Facebook is like, oh, this person must like this kind of content because they're really engaged in it. So then what it does, it finds something similar to that and it feeds it to them. And then what happens is you get so if you respond to a negative post or what you see as a negative post, because it's all subjective, then it will give you more of what you see as negative, even if I don't see it as negative. So then what happens is that person goes out and argues with someone else about all the negative posts. This person talks about all the negative posts. And in reality, they could be talking about different posts, but they're both talking about negativity and Rotor Riot. And what I've found is if you just scroll by that stuff and you engage with what you consider positive posts, it will feed you more of that. So oftentimes what Facebook is doing is holding a mirror up in front of you. And I know people are going to argue about this, but that's how it works, and when you have that volume of people and then you start to get the mob mentality where somebody's like, oh yeah, this sucks because of this. Then you get a bunch more people jumping in saying, yeah, you're right, it does, and real quick side, John, we can cut this out if it's too lengthy, but there's
No, this is great. I'm going to put it in short term here. Ghostbusters 2, when they put the slime around the whole city and it becomes negative, that's exactly what Facebook's doing. So, and realistically, what Chad's trying to say is it's not Rotor Riot's fault, it's the user's fault.
Right?
It's not about assigning blame. I think it's about it can't be any one person's fault. We're not going to say it's the user's fault, but people saying that it's Rotor Riot's fault, doesn't work that way either. If people want to see any community become a positive place, it starts with you and starts with the individuals taking it upon themselves to be a positive contributor. When people reach out to me and say, what are you going to do about Rotor Riot? I'm going to tell you to go post something nice today. Just go post something nice. Just be a positive person, and that's what makes the change. Everyone taking it upon
something themselves. Else I wanted to take note of is it's a differentiating factor. Most other groups, like Tiny Whoop, Armatan, Immersion, these are groups based around a product or a product line. Rotor Riot, the group, was not started around a product or a product line. It was started as essentially the community, the mini quad community. And so its focus is not as narrow. It's really easy to have, when you have a narrow focus and you're like, hey, talk about this bottle of water. Anybody that's not talking about the bottle of water gets deleted or whatever. But if your topic matter is the room, then you have a lot more to talk about, and you can't, it's not as easy to moderate. And then when the numbers increase, it doesn't get, when you go from 10,000 people to 20,000 people, it doesn't get twice as hard. It gets 4 times harder. And not only that, the diversity of people in our group is tremendous. So we need to take that in account as well. And one of the things that we did, and this can parlay into the new group, is we created Quad Camp, which is very specifically focused on tech and troubleshooting and technology and I guess, anything to do with like building, flying, but mostly getting you flying and the facts that are needed to do so and the troubleshooting. And we wanted to pull that aside, because what happens is, if you're at a party and you're like, hey, my my watch isn't working, and you sit down and you take it apart, and people are like bumping the table and gears are falling out. Like, you're gonna be pissed. So that's the how I kind of describe the group. It's like some people are in there because they want to learn something, but then you got jokesters or, people talking about the latest news or arguing about clones or, whatever. So we made this separate group to just focus on tech talk and troubleshooting, and it's called Quad Camp. And we pulled that aside so we could focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a great idea. I see, with the whole everyone arguing and trolling and stuff like that on these forums, the way that I see it is, if you can't say it in front of the person's face, don't type it. I mean, it's so easy to hide behind your computer and the keyboard and everything. But I mean, some of the stuff people have said to me, there's no way they're saying to me in front of my face,
I would agree.
Yeah.
Like, if they're in the room with you.
Yeah. And even if they didn't have to type it, typing it is really easy. Typing something and then sending it, there's not as much courage in doing it face to face. And even if it was like a voice message, I don't think a lot of people would be saying the outlandish shit, that they would say on some of these forums and comments and stuff. And we all have to be nice to one another. We're all in this together. We all love it. We all go through the same ups and downs. We all have that pain, that suffering from, losing a quad or breaking a quad. We really want to fly, and we all have that joy and fulfillment of flying. So why would we want to be rude to one another or disrespect one another or just be negative to one another? We're all in this together. We all love flight, the hobby, the people that we meet in it, and yeah.
So an interesting thing, like what you're describing, the problems, the negative things that you're describing, I think that those are kind of universal problems with social media interaction. But what I think is interesting about our community specifically is, okay, this isn't a Facebook group for a group of 20 people that gets together and goes bowling together on Saturdays, and then off Saturdays, that's how they stay in contact. No, our community seems large because it's hundreds of thousands of people, but it's scattered globally. And then there's like less than maybe 10 people that, any one person actually physically interacts with. So the scattered nature of our community means that interacting through social media becomes the primary form of contact. So it almost becomes more significant, especially if you don't have people in proximity to you that you fly with. That becomes your only taste of socialization within FPV drones. So I think it exacerbates the effects of it.
Yeah. So how are we going to fix this?
I think part of the fix is Quad Camp. I think getting the people that, are dedicated and loyal to Rotor Riot, but are getting frustrated because they can't get answers to their tech questions, getting them pulled aside where that can be the total focus, I think is a big part of it. So we're going to see, it's literally only been one day. So we'll see how it works out. We had 500 people join within 24 hours. And it's very active immediately, and I'm seeing all kinds of people getting help. And then the other thing we're doing is we're starting to document these common questions. So whenever we see a very common question, we will cut and paste it into a document, and then we'll keep adding to it. So like a big one yesterday was soldering. So, we started collecting the data of all of this advice of, what kind of solder to use, what kind of temperature, all this stuff. And we're starting to build this kind of database. And, for me, I'm really big on education, and even more so free education. I never went to college, and everything that I've done, I taught myself through existing materials that I could get a hold of, whether it's books, the internet, whatever. And it's very powerful. And I want other people to be able to, find success in that. And so whatever I can do or we can do to contribute to that is a big driver for me. So I want to be able to make those educational elements free to people.
I think, going into the new year, we're taking a little bit more responsibility for the, I don't know if power is the right word, the influence.
Being an example.
Right. Well, just because, I mean, Rotor Riot was designed to be like a hub for the community, but I don't know if you expected the success that it achieved, and that, and what comes with that is that now when there's a problem with, say, the industry as a whole, right, it gets blamed on Rotor Riot, partially because it's one of the largest Facebook groups, and partially because the brand has become so synonymous with the mini quad culture. I was in Detroit a month ago, walking around one of the busier plazas, and I had my backpack on. My drones weren't showing, but I had the Rotor Riot sticker, and someone stopped me and said, "Oh, are there drones in there?" I was like, "How do you know?" He's like, "That skull symbol, isn't that like a drone thing?" And kind of vainly, I was just like, "Have you heard of Rotor Riot or Drib or a name like Charpu or like?" And he hadn't heard of any of those names. And I was like, "Wow, wow, that's crazy." You don't know who I am, no, but he didn't know.
Did he know Matty?
But no.
No one knows who I am.
You fell off. Yeah, I want to talk about your falling off the face of the earth, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. That I'm starting to see the public knowledge of the symbolism, even if the specifics aren't there yet. So it's going to be a good year.
Well, I think I did want to touch on something. Maybe this is off topic. You can tell me, but there is something I want to kind of, I don't know, come clean about. But the whole bridge diving thing was kind of an eye opener for me on a couple of different levels. I think
this is exactly on topic. It's a perfect segue.
Yeah,
it's coming to realization.
Don't ever worry about being on topic or not. I mean, this is freestyle. We're gonna try to stick to a bullet point, but this is freestyle. I mean, anything goes. So,
all right.
Okay, bridge diving. I have something to say about this too.
But to help with that segue, I think what you're saying is, we realize, okay, there's social implications. We maybe have an unexpected responsibility to try and help with the primary form of communication, which is Facebook, and then the reaction to some of our stunts. In the past, when we say we are not an example for you. We do our thing, and we can't take responsibility for if you copy or aren't, say blah blah blah. And I think following the biggest blow up of the year, we're like, you know what? Maybe it's time we start being the example that people think we are.
Well, I think the eye opener for me was I have, ever since the beginning of flight tests, inspiring people has been my primary driving factor. Education's always an element of it, but I feel as though inspiration is a little more powerful because that can actually entice you or get you motivated to learn. And I think that was the eye opener for me. Was I believed we weren't unsafe at the bridge. I mean, I not for a second do I feel anybody was in danger. I knew the whole situation. The wind was blowing away from the bridge. It was. But we didn't cover any of that. We didn't share any of that information. So, I think I personally got a little too lost in the entertainment side of what we did, which I don't plan on, backing off at all. But I think there's the other side of you can't inspire people without influencing them. So it's not really right for me to say, hey, I want us to inspire people, but they have to make their own decisions. That's kind of a two-faced, in my opinion, when I really thought about it.
It's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah. And I'm not okay with that. I very much believe in taking responsibility for your actions and what you choose to do. And, kind of my argument was, my son and I watch stuff all the time, and he doesn't do anything stupid because I parent him. But that's not an excuse. That's not a reason to not try to be a positive influence on people. And so if we were to do the bridge thing again, I think it would have included some kind of coverage of here's why it wasn't unsafe. Or just
what went into it. I mean, because none of us thought we had to proactively describe it as safe because we were all confident in the safety. But I mean, just in general, we're in a position where we can share things about the setup and can help people understand what goes into it.
Yeah.
It's.
I think
Go ahead.
The only thing that could really be unsafe about that flight, I mean, if an ESC motor or prop blows, anyone who's been in this hobby knows it falls straight down. There's no more lift being produced. It's not going to go crazy and start flying through the air and land on top of the bridge. It's most likely going to fall straight down. So if you're not flying over the cars, I don't think there's an issue. If you have a fail-safe, that's a different story. But I mean, the odds of having a fail-safe, with Tommy's setup, he has a really reliable link. And we know it's a really reliable link from the hours we've spent flying it. So, I don't think listen, I was in a park the other day where I was allowed to fly, and I almost gave some guy a haircut because he came out of fucking nowhere. Exactly how I was arguing this point. My spotter wasn't looking in the direction that he was looking in because it's a park. He has 360 degrees to have to spot with, right? And if a guy comes out of nowhere, especially in BC where we have a lot of stuff people can hide behind, I had to pump my quad into a tree just so, it was completely out of the way and getting it out of harm's way of this person that was walking down this path. So for me, the bridge dive wasn't unsafe at all. And you know what the funny thing is? I know I don't have nearly as many subscribers, and I don't hold this image of having to have people look up to me. But the recent video that I posted out had the exact same bridge in it, and it had like your guys' dislikes were like higher than your likes, and it's the other way around for me.
Right.
People don't see it. People didn't see it as something unsafe. They saw it as a piece of art or whatever, right? Or whatever they want to call it, inspiration. But why do you think that is? Do you think it's because there is this toxic?
I think it's individuals versus a entity, right? So people see individual actions of you or me or a sole pilot, and then get mad at us for doing it, but it's not the same ferocity as when an entity does it that has become seen as
ambassadors.
The ambassador, right? And so it's less likely that a single person is the ambassador for an activity than kind of a larger entity. And like we were saying, I think we lost sight of the fact that people see Rotor Riot as the leaders of this, of freestyle flight.
Let me ask you something. When you posted Matty had beef or whatever, that edit,
mm-hmm.
and you read through the comments, did you have any negative comments about how you shouldn't have been flying that bridge?
Yeah, there's a few.
So with my edit, literally there was one troll, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Usually there's more, but there was one troll on the most recent edit, and he didn't even bring up the bridge. It was just some stupid shit that obviously I know he's just, made up and feeling angry at the world or whatever, has to hide behind his computer. Fake account, right? So, but not one person mentioned that bridge dive
mm-hmm.
and how it was unsafe.
It's old news now.
It is, right?
Right.
So it's this bridge is something I can session every single week now. Is that what you're saying?
No, there's definitely, it's so funny ever since, and it was definitely Hammergate that kicked it off. Hammergate happened. That's where Chris Thomas smashed Dylan's quad for being overpowered at the event. You don't even know about that?
Okay. When was this?
So,
man.
Drew, explain to Matty what happened.
How do I put this as briefly as? There was a big event, the Riot, the Riot MultiGP International Open, and it was the largest drone racing event ever put on. It truly was a spectacular event, and we had a whole freestyle area that Rotor Riot hosted, and a lot of fun. But there was an
incident. Wait a minute. I didn't get an invitation to this.
I'm sure you were invited.
I'm sure you were.
There was no invite.
You were off the face of the planet.
Listen. Let's address the elephant in the room, okay? Let's do this before we get into this one.
Yeah.
Let's address the elephant in the room. This wouldn't be happening with me if Steele was still on the team. Can we agree?
Wow, we just took like a big left turn.
Anyway, so at the Riot International Open...
Wait, no, hold on. This is what I'm talking about. If we're going to bring up topics, we're going to hit it.
Don't shy away from this one.
No.
Is it the elephant in the room? I wasn't even thinking about it.
Here, I'm going to speak facts. Matty, I've invited you on about once every 6 months since we started. Correct?
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. We just never, you always wanted me to come to you. And then this time it was more, we talked about doing other projects and stuff like that. That is true. Okay. You have approached me. No one else has.
Drew has.
But,
or did you?
Yeah.
Maybe Drew didn't.
Well, you said, yeah.
Or did I ask
Matty
you
has kind of gone off my radar. And then, Chad, you reached out to me and said, hey, I've been talking to Matty. I said, oh, really?
Listen,
how do you feel about going to Canada?
This podcast wouldn't be happening if Steele was still on the team. I know for a fact it wouldn't. And
why do you feel that way?
Because, well, okay, now we're opening a whole fucking other can.
You started it.
This wasn't even on the agenda.
This wasn't on the agenda, but people also have to know why I'm here, because all of a sudden it's like they're in Canada, Steele's gone, they're in Canada, Matty's hosting a fucking podcast. So, I mean, I was just trying to say I didn't get invited to the thing, maybe because there were certain people that didn't want me there, maybe, I don't know. I never heard of this fucking event. I'll tell you that much. Anyways, go on.
I don't know how you missed it, but
go on.
Well, see, I would totally address that if I could, but like I can't say. So here's what I can say. It's not like when I was in the room anywhere or on a conversation that your name was brought up and anybody was like, no, don't invite him. Like, I think it was just a matter of you were out of the loop and it just was what it was.
Yeah, at that point in time, I was hiding in my fucking room and I couldn't leave to even get groceries. So going to an event like that was the furthest thing away from what was healthy for me at that time.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't want to villainize Steele for certain things. I mean, he caught a lot of flack for kind of how he exited, but people have to do their own things, and I think now that he's kind of got his momentum doing his thing, I mean, there's not as much but there was some weird tension for a while, so I'm glad we're kind of getting past that.
Okay, so anyways, this MultiGP event.
Yeah, so the MultiGP event,
Hammergate.
One of the Hammergate, what became Hammergate, right? So one of the requirement, one of the things that had to be done to get what was 8 racetracks all going with 8 pilots at the same time, in addition to separation, was strict enforcement of power output limitation, 25 milliwatts. That's all you got. And incidents happened. And so, one person unintentionally powered up on a higher power level. And, prior to this, there had been several other accidental power-ups on higher levels, in addition to some people intentionally powering up because they didn't care. They wanted their good video.
Some Rotor Riot pilots.
Some then Rotor Riot pilots. So it escalated. The breaking point was this guy. He's a buddy, actually. He became a buddy. And it was an accidental thing for him. He was a little bit newer to the hobby. I believe that he did everything within his power to ensure that his power was set right, and he made a mistake, or mistakes happen, right? So he made a mistake, but that was the breaking point, and to make an example of that, Chris Thomas smashed his quad with a hammer. So he came over and in front of
a large crowd of people.
In front of a large audience, brought it up, made a big show out of it. And now what doesn't get talked about is, Chris later replaced his quad with a fully built one. The then president of MultiGP also bought him another setup from Rotor Riot. So it was more about the show and the example, right? But it definitely didn't go over as Chris had planned, especially in terms of reaction, especially for the people that weren't there, because we live in the age of smartphones. So lots of videos were posted, lots of opinions were shared, and everyone not at the event really latched onto this. And what was weird is by the next day, we'd moved past it. The problem was resolved. Feelings had been mended. Hands were shaked. Things were better. But the internet just kept going. Oh my God, this is the worst thing. Hammergate. how dare MultiGP do this? How dare Rotor Riot be affiliated with a group that would do this? How dare Rotor Riot not leave the group? No, not leave the event, right? And there was all this talk, and I think that kicked off, like you were saying, a lot of the this activity, that kind of mob mentality, right?
Yeah. So that was really eye-opening for me, because I've been involved in obviously social media and YouTube and all of that for quite a few years through Flight Test. But this was really interesting, because what had played out and what was so distinctly different about this whole situation was I was there witnessing the reality of it, and then online was like a whole nother reality. But then that online reality loops back around and kind of impacts real reality. And it's just so odd. And, but what it did show me was online is not real. Like it's just that people latch onto a feeling, and then that becomes fact. And then all of these facts come from this feeling of, Chris is this horrible person. Like everything is back to normal, and people like dress up like Chris with a hammer for Halloween. Like,
yeah, that's hilarious.
Like it's funny now. Yet I remember people were, ready to. There was a guy that was physically threatening Chris Thomas. Like he was
way over the line. Like
willing to go back to prison. He was trying to get his address. He was gonna go find him, and he was gonna pound him. And
go back to prison?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like he was proud that he had, been in prison, and, he's fine going back, putting Chris in his place. And I don't know if, I'm sure there were other people as well, but I was actually messaging with him saying, hey, think about what you're really saying and what you're doing. 'Cause even the guy who this happened to is fine, so, so obviously nothing happened or escalated, but I felt like it was like honestly, right on the edge. I just want to
throw out, the guy who it happened to, he got some traction with his FPV career. Just saying. Any attention seems to be good attention. He's doing great now. So I'm just saying.
Actually, are we allowed to say who it is?
We'll ask him. We can edit it out. Yeah, it's Dylan Carpenter, right? And
yeah,
he's been I'm not trying to downplay the work he's been putting in. He's really been pushing himself as a pilot. That, like I said, at that event, he had been flying, and he actually worked for the AMA, so he had a lot of RC experience, but FPV specifically, he's kind of new to, still feeling it out, and now, he's really jumped in, been pushing himself. He's picked up a few sponsors.
Hey, listen, I was at the very first Drone Nationals, and I'll tell you this much. If you haven't prepared mentally for competitions like that, and I'm a very competitive person. I've competed most of my life in sports and all that stuff, hockey, football, rugby. If you haven't prepared yourself, I was even like stressing and doing stuff that I shouldn't be able to do, because there's money, there's recognition on the line, and you fuck up sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so I should see this guy's. You guys should send me a link, and I can see. This guy in action.
He's actually really helpful in the Facebook group, and very positive, and I love Dylan. He's great.
Super sport. Oh wait, yeah, I gotta give him an extra big shout out, because when I showed up at the event, he just happened to be there right as I was getting out of my truck, and he had made me Casey Neistat sunglasses. So he had black sunglasses that he'd spray paint, chipped away, kind of like a tongue-in-cheek, kind of give me crap. I'd never met him, but he was like, give me crap for vlogging, but also a big fan of what I was doing.
That's a lot of effort.
Like right out the bat. It was a lot of effort, and I was like, that's amazing. Thank you. And like all sunglasses, I unfortunately lost them.
I was going to say, where are they, Drew?
I lost them. I can't keep track of sunglasses.
I bet you have a hoodie, though.
Anyways,
so
I've taken to stealing some of Chad's hoodies.
The whole point of that story was after Hammergate, every week there was something. And I think the very next week, wasn't that the what was it? Was it the episode? No, Willy.
No, that was a couple weeks later. my thing.
Oh, so was it
There was
Willie's
something else.
Willie's ankle? No, because that was
No,
after.
that was a couple weeks later, but that was the next big one for us, at least.
Yeah, so we did an episode where Drew intentionally flew into Willie and cut his ankle, and it wasn't
intentionally or
oh no,
tried
100%
to just
intentionally.
It was intentionally, and then that was another one where. So, okay, so oh boy, now we're spinning in
digging into this.
We're spinning into our safety discussion.
No, it's on topic.
So
okay, so what happened? I want to tell the story.
You tell it, and then I'll tell my side.
Okay, what happened was Willard had messed with me. He was, I went to take off. He was standing on my quad, and so when he lifted his foot off, I flew into his ankle, and he laughed, and nothing happened. I like kind of hit him with the quad. He laughed, and so I did it again, and then it nicked him. Teeny little cut. It bled. We laughed about it, and then he flew into me, and then we were even like, okay, we got to calm down, right? But it was all in good fun between his and my, based on like the relationship I have with that specific person. And I'll circle back around to that. The internet doesn't see the full context of this, and so the comments really got lit up with people very upset with me that I did this, and I am upset with. I don't think that there's an excuse for doing that sort of thing, and I felt really horrible about that, and couldn't even understand why it happened. Like, it had such an effect on me. I was like, why did I even? And then I went back and I watched it was one of Marty Fly's and Drone Doll's videos, right? And they had a shot of me when I was flying, and Willard was there. It was another day, and he was flipping switches on my radio while I was flying. Because that's the kind of person, he's always messing with you, and you mess with him right back. And it reminded me, I was like, oh yeah, that's why I did that. Because in the weeks leading up to that, where I was spending time with Willard, he was flipping switches, he was unplugging my goggle battery while I was flying, he was hiding my drones, he was hiding my GoPro, he was stealing my batteries, he was doing all sorts and I was giving it right back, and we just kept one-upping each other until the point where I'm just like, I'm going to get you, and I got him.
You nicked him.
And that's all anybody saw.
He's not mad at all, right? But it was, again, another example of how, we were just showing kind of genuinely what happened and weren't being cognizant of the full context and how people were going to perceive that being shown, with Rotor Riot being seen as the example that it's become.
So what was funny was that whole thing completely overshadowed that we had a Major League Baseball player for the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah, we were at this 6th spot. We had a Major League Baseball player show up because he was a fan of the show.
Yeah, Trevor Bauer.
He was really good at flying. Really good. He's really talented. We were flying this awesome spot. We were all on our A game. It was some of Willard's best flying I've ever seen. I knew I threw down a line that I was super.
It all got overshadowed. It all got thrown out because nobody paid attention after you hit Willie in the ankle.
Yep.
So now, okay. So from my perspective, I guess people that know me know just like what I said. I like to address anything head on. Like if something's an issue, I will gladly have a conversation. I will bear it and discuss it. And that's how I treated the show. And the way I looked at it was, Rotor Riot, I promised that we were going to be transparent and we were going to, display what this community is. And that happened, so I put it in. And it was just that simple. Do I agree with it? No. That day I told Drew we're going to have a talk. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And it was uncomfortable. And we even recorded some of it. And but none of that made it in. We just, for timing's sake, we tightened everything up. And, I completely disagree with what he did or even why he did it. I don't, believe there's any, justification for it. And we've had those discussions. But the problem is none of that makes it out there, I guess, until now. But yeah, it's so weird though. People are ready to lynch Drew after that.
Yeah, it was bad. I lost a lot of.
Everyone needs to settle down. Like, yeah. I hope this reaches as many people as it can, especially the people that are participating in the Rotor Riot forum. Let's settle down a little bit, guys. Let's just settle it down, and let's all give each other the positivity that everyone deserves.
I want to jump somewhere. So, we came in with some specific topics to kind of guide the conversation. And what it became was an opportunity for, me and Chad as kind of spokespeople for Rotor Riot to talk through what we went through as a group this past year, kind of coming into the realization that how people see us and the way we can influence both negatively and positively, and the responsibility that comes with that, the safety things we've learned, events we've done, all these things. So we got to recap. I want to shift to give Matty a chance to recap on the MattyStuntz brand, which was one of the biggest brands in FPV, one of my biggest influences, I would say. Like when I was starting, it was MattyStuntz and Schizo were my two main inspirations for all of this. And then somewhere along the way, what happened, man? Where'd you go? You want to talk about it?
Fuck. Well, I'm not gonna spill out my whole life story, but basically, not last summer, but the summer before, in July, I was gonna quit my job and do this stuff full time. And I don't mean just flying and making videos. I was gonna do commercial industry stuff in Vancouver, because we have the second largest film industry in the world here, and we shoot a lot of shows, and I had some jobs lined up. Took 2 weeks off, and this was the first 2 weeks in 4 years. And I think what happened was, long and short of it is, I just burnt myself out, had a little bit of a nervous breakdown, what you would call a nervous breakdown, and basically it was the combination of being in a pretty stressful, high-stress job with a lot of responsibilities, making a lot of money. Usually they come hand in hand. So there was that, and then I would leave my work, working 10-hour days, and I would practice. I would involve myself for a good 8 hours in the mini quad industry, whether it be flying, building, editing, sifting through footage, marketing or whatever, right? So once that 2 weeks came, my body was just like, man, this is what I think it was. I think my body, my brain were just like, you need to rest and you need to not do anything. And the way that it did that was it started giving me these panic attacks and anxiety. So I couldn't fix it. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't drive. I couldn't drive over bridges. Couldn't drive in traffic. I was driving a car that I thought was causing it because it was so small. The Corvette, you get into it, it's like a fucking race car, right? So I got a truck. That didn't fix it. I tried doing some natural pathways and natural pathways to fix it with 5-HTP and L-tyrosine and stuff to promote serotonin and dopamine. And I got into meditation, which is a really huge help.
We meditated together in Canada, and
a little bit. It was more of a reset. It was more of a reset meditation. It helped me definitely because it was a pretty crazy day when we went out, but it still wasn't working. It would help. I would, and you would see it when it would help because I would release something. And the thing is with this hobby, it's an outlet for me for a creative outlet and for also a stress relief. But the thing is, I was so fucked up that and there's other issues bouncing around in there, but this was the main one. But I was so fucked up, I couldn't even produce anything. I couldn't even think about being creative. And if I went out to fly, something would break, and I'd just be like, fuck it, I'm going home. And where it was before, I would have spare parts in my bag. I would fix it on the spot, and I would do whatever it takes to fly that day and to get my vision onto the GoPro, right? So, long story short, nothing was really working. I absolutely changed everything with eating, exercising, and I even started taking actual meds, which I was trying to not do. But it was about a year now where I had been paralyzed by it, took the meds, started doing some other stuff, and now it's I can't even believe that shit was happening. Like I don't even know how it was fathomable to be so fucked up, so sick, and just so disconnected.
So you weren't flying, you weren't posting. I think it had.
I wasn't myself, man. I wasn't myself. I wasn't thinking right. I wasn't connected to myself spiritually, mentally, or physically, and it was like a shell of who I was. And I mean, I'm still like working on it. I'm still like, there's still personal growth there. You know, I could do basically what I was doing before all this shit happened. I got to be able to. A real big thing with me is flying. And it's not the flying and being high. I love being high, and that's why I do this hobby, because it simulates that height that I like being in. It's more just being trapped. I have this issue with being trapped in places. So a steel coffin at 40,000 feet for 5 hours is pretty much as trapped as you can get. So there's some things there that I got to work on. But as soon as I start traveling and I start going places again, which I'm working myself up to,
that's right.
It'll be the next big thing in the evolution of my health and happiness and mental health and all that stuff. But what are we doing? What's the next thing here?
Well, wait. I want to first say thank you for sharing your mental journey. I don't think that stuff is easy to talk about. I don't really talk about my own struggles with. It's not as severe, but I don't really talk about it much. It's difficult to talk about. So I appreciate your honesty about this, and I think it will help people. And their own. So thanks for that. And I also want to say I'm glad to have you back in the community, and super, super glad that we are kicking off activities together and doing stuff like this podcast and more episodes and content. Yeah, it's gonna be a good year.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great year. It's gonna be an absolute awesome year. Like, I can't fucking lose right now, man. Whether it be with work, relationships, projects, and where it was before, it was just so hard and so difficult to do anything. Mm-hmm. Get out of bed and fucking make breakfast, and I have 2 eggs instead of fucking 3. You know what I mean? So it's now it's crazy. I'm really hitting this crypto coin stuff really hard right now. Like every single penny that I make is going into this crypto coin stuff.
Oh my gosh!
And I would love to do an episode on it, but I don't know. But this is everything's down right now, and it's a perfect time to buy, but it is going down, man.
Well, hey, I think nothing's off the table with what we might talk about. So if you can get creative and relate it back to mini quads, I think we totally could. That there's definitely a hype spike with cryptocurrency.
This is the thing. Cryptocurrency was invented by people like the people that are in this industry, gamers and basically tech nerds, right? So if you understand it, you can really start to make your money. Start making money with where you throw $1,000 at one of these lower grade ones where they're like $2, $3, and they're projected to go to 1,000. If you do the numbers on that, you're set up for a down payment on a house. You could do this hobby forever and not ever run out of one more motor, one more battery, one more fucking FPV camera.
There's
whatever.
No risk. There's virtually no risk, right?
Well, I mean, it is very high. It's high risk. I've always been a high risk person, though. So if I'm not willing to take a 30% loss on my money, I don't deserve to get that 300% gain in my money as well. So I've always looked at it like that, and I'm willing. This is money where I don't need it, so I'm throwing it. It's money that would just go in the bank into the savings anyways. So I'm just going to throw it at it and see what happens.
That is the title of this podcast. Matty doesn't need money.
I love it.
Wow, let's.
Well, I do want to wrap up this podcast soonish. So
before we wrap up, I think what we should do is kind of talk about what's next, like the future. So what should people expect from us? Not just the podcast, but Rotor Riot, Drib, Matty.
Well, I mean, I'm sitting on a shitload of footage right now that I just haven't released. So I'm going to be. I just released one edit. I didn't realize it was 6 months, but 6 months since my last edit. So for me, at least, it's you'll be expecting to hear more from me in the industry when I have the time. This is going to be absolutely a place for me where I set aside an hour and a half each week, and I can dig into the hobby. And then at the same time, I'm very, very motivated to start creating again and just get out and film. I have literally one of my best friends got into this hobby, so he's got the bug right now, and we've been going out. His name's Aaron, and he's picking it up so fast. Like, he used to stunt with me as well, so he did like all the wheelies and all that stuff, and he has that same type of mindset I do. He was with me when we did the filming downtown, and he used to do wheelies with me on the streets, so. He's into that kind of shit. So it's lots of fun. I'm excited. I really hope that I can get out to some events, and I think that with the equipment that I fly, not enough people see it. I know these two guys saw it, and Tommy saw the 6-inch 6S, and it's I want to be able to get out to events and have people actually see this rig fly in real time, because I think it's pretty spectacular when I see other people fly it, which is the only other person I've seen fly it is Sean from Seattle. But so more content, get to some venues, and the podcast for me.
So real quick regarding Rotor Riot, we talked about Quad Camp as far as the Facebook group, but there is an actual physical Quad Camp we're going to be doing once a month, and that will be Rotor Riot pilots showing up to a city, and we'll do, I think, 30 to 40 people can go to this, and there's like an entry fee, and it's 2 days over a weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And Drew, why don't you go ahead and explain a little bit about that?
Oh, I love this event, this whole new thing we're doing. I mean, this is, as a whole, Rotor Riot, we're going to be kicking off a lot of new work like this podcast, and what I'm most excited about is Quad Camp, which is being led by Kevin Doherty, aka Stinger Swarm. He deserves a throaty announcement. So Stingy is setting up our Quad Camp operations once a month. It is a private event where we're going to help people build their quads. It's really tailored toward novice to intermediate. You can bring in your half-built quad, and we'll help you get over that last hurdle, or you can build in your fully built quad, and we'll help you do tuning. We also go out and fly. We do trick tutorials both on the simulator and in real life, and we try to go off-site to areas and fly. We've only done one, and it was in California at the X-Hover headquarters, and we're setting up for our second one, which I believe will be taking place at the end of January. Probably.
I would love to be able to make it out to one of those.
Well, you need to. Yeah, we need to get one, definitely. Or, get you at all of them would be great, but let's...
just to show people. I don't think there's many people out there that are flying that setup that I fly.
There's one person.
Maybe one or two people. I know there's some other people that are doing it because they message me on Facebook, but people just might not know about them. But it is something that everyone should at least try. It's no harm in trying. You don't know if something's going to work unless you actually use it. So
your battery's like $50.
My batteries are $50. Well, no, I think that there's going to be some people that are going to be coming out in the next little while with a affordable 6S battery. Right. The other day I went back to 30 degrees just to see. I flew one pack with 30 degrees, and it's not like I said, okay, I'm going to stop flying this because it's not for me. I thought, okay, how can I use this? Mm-hmm. How can I use this to my advantage to get what I have in my head out for one of my edits?
It's because you saw me do your tricks with less camera tilt, huh?
No, it's because I flew my buddy's quad, Aaron, because he started with 25. Now he's pumped up to 35. He's at 45 now, and he's going to be one of those guys that most likely flies higher tilt.
Yeah,
quad. But anyways, it was pretty fun. it's just a whole different perspective. Like I did this knife edge through this tree, and then I did this like little flip at the same time, and I was like, I should be hitting the ground right now, but I wasn't, and I just like kind of floated, you know?
Yeah.
So it's
floaty.
Yeah, it's very floaty.
Yeah. So
anyways, I want to make it out to one of those events where we're teaching people stuff on the sim, we're teaching people setups and all that other stuff, and
it's an evolving thing, right? So, you know, right now we're keeping it to like 30 people. If how
many
get more
do you
pilots
have
out there, maybe we can we had 30 in California. If we get more pilots out there, more like the instructor pilots out there, maybe we could increase the attendee list. But keeping it smaller, I think, is great. You get to know the people better. I just thought it was great. Everyone who came said it exceeded their value expectations, so that was a relief because we had never done something like that. So we were kind of nervous, I'll admit. And
did you guys post footage from that?
You don't watch? What does it matter? I post the vlog.
Not from Rotor Riot. Drew did on his channel, and then some of the people that were there. Actually, Dan Maffett did an amazing video. It's better than a commercial.
His video is a little better than mine, I think.
Now, I honestly think that you guys for the Rotor Riot thing should make a little commercial about it and just let people know.
We will actually. So we filmed for that.
Hey, 30 people for your first little gig. That's a lot of people, I think. And I think that you're almost bottlenecked with exactly what you said with the instructors. So 30 people. I mean, how many instructors are you gonna have? Like 5.
So we have 3 there, and I think 10-1 is even pushing it, right? But
it worked out pretty well, and
it worked out great. And people came from across. Some people flew in. It was mainly California locals, but like people flew in from out of, like one guy flew in from Florida. I was like, wow, that's awesome. So
that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Just for this, and one guy just happened to be there out of town for work. He was there already, and so he just extended his stay a little bit and came out. But it was really good.
I have to say, it's very addictive for us as well, because I know afterwards we had this high of it's real people. Again, it's not the internet. You know, you're actually there with real people. You're hearing their real thoughts. There's time, so it's not like you're interacting and then separating. Like you're actually spending time with them, getting to know them, what's important to them. And it's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's probably the thing I'm most excited for at Rotor Riot.
Honestly, it's the most creative and original thing that I've seen in a long time in the industry, at least. And I think it's great that you guys are doing it. It's
well, we're lucky to have Kevin leading it. Kevin, I mean, he did flight instruction for full scale aviation. He teaches people how to fly planes, so he is, set up with the mentality for how to instruct on these things.
Oh, he is a total
just a rock star with it. So we all follow his lead on this. He's doing great.
Nice.
Yeah. And that's I mean, what's great, we have just a great team. I couldn't be more excited with the people we're working with, the people that are part of the Rotor Riot team and what they're doing and how we play off each other's different strengths. So it's gonna be a good year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, all right, well, let's wrap this up then.
Keep it short and sweet. Next week, I'll try to have this decorated more like these rock stars who fucking went to some kind of garage sale and picked up a bunch of shit and spent hours and hours setting it up. I have a white wall. My audio will probably be a little bit better because I'm going to block it off and maybe even get a mic.
We could green screen you. We'll get our editor to green screen you somewhere.
Yeah.
No, that's too
What do you think? What do we think we should decorate this with? Should I just get like a...
You tell us in the comments below, what would you like to see behind Matty's head? Thank you guys for watching.
Don't say dildos and don't say gay porn, because, there's a lot of FPV pilots that are just... They drop that gay stuff a lot.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we don't have time. We're wrapping this up. So next episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in to the first episode of Unrestricted, hosted by Rotor Riot.